Welcome to the Trash Cats Trashcast. I'm Richard.
I'm Steven.
And today we're exploring a feeling of deep anxiety, a sense of separation from yourself and your surroundings. Today we're talking about depersonalization and derealization.
This is a strange one.
Yeah, I think it was very enlightening to me.
Yeah, because you have a little experience on it, so that'll make it really fun.
Yeah.
Talk about how fucked up shit was.
Yeah. So how was your week?
It's been okay. To be honest, the last couple of weeks have been kind of dog shit, and this week things kind of felt more normal. I'm feeling a little bit better, a little more productive. I'm working on a really fucking cool piece of art that I'm very excited about, and just kind of, dealing with the rest of the bullshit and staying giant, conquering worlds. What about you, man?
My week has been, it's been fine. Yesterday, I decided to make some weed-infused honey.
Ooh.
That was a fun thing to do. And it worked really well. But then I had I strained the, after I, infused the honey, I took the flour and I strained it through a cheesecloth. And I was sure there was still some honey in there. And I thought, I should use this and make, tea. So I did that. And the good news is there was no buzz from it at all. I didn't get anything, which leads me to believe that I got all of the THC out of it in the honey. So that's really good.
Yeah. Sure. To clarify, the THC went in the honey and what you filtered out. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but I also put in, so I added some chai tea and some other stuff, and I still drank it because I thought it would be good. And the next day, I said didn't get a buzz or anything, but the next day I sorry to get blue on the podcast here, but I farted, and I realized it smelled like fresh, really skunky weed.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
And I didn't think anything of it at first until I was at work later on, and I farted again, and I smelled it, and it smelled like skunky ass fucking weed. So I had to look it up, and I was like, does weed tea make your fart, make your gas smell like weed? And sure enough, it's a thing. If you drink tea made with marijuana flower, you will have some gas that smells like some fresh weed. So it might get you in trouble if you
get pulled over and
rip a big one in front of a cop, and then he thinks he's got some, you got some shit on you.
Oh my God, dude. That reminds me of two quick asides. Have you ever had, and it doesn't always happen with weed for me, but more often, like hitting a big bong or whatever, where you cough up smoke way.
Oh yeah.
But dude,
way later. You burp it up later.
Yeah, because it's like you can seal off a little pocket of air in your lungs that keeps the smoke trapped if you inhale weird or you're just using your lungs a lot while smoking or whatever. Dude, I had one time I was driving. I am not exaggerating at all. It was 45 minutes later. And it was like a full couple mouthfuls of smoke where I was like,
damn,
oh shit, maybe I have a collapsed lung. It was like so extreme. I could not believe this smoke was like continuing to come out of me that much longer.
Wow.
It was odd. Very, very scary, but fun.
Fun.
All right, and then
it's like when you eat beets and the next day you take a shit and it looks like blood.
Why would you ever eat a beet? I'm not some farm boy eating beets out of the dirt. Fuck a beet.
Boy, you eat Lebanese food or, Mediterranean food all the time.
I like fried beets, like fries, like veggie fries.
Oh, I've never had fried beets.
Like, you don't have to actually fry them, but just like throw them in the oven for a bit with salt, make like little chips out of them. That's pretty dope.
I just fuck with pickled beets, man.
With an onion dip, zesty sauce to dip the beets.
Ooh.
Other thing, are you familiar with the Nepalese honey?
No.
Okay, there's a couple documentaries on it, But in Nepal, I don't know what I'm talking about well enough to be super confident, but there's specific tribes where every so often, I believe it's like once a year, they go to these specific honey trees that like grow like, and they're super fucking huge, really tall trees. I believe they're at the top of this mountain.
Wait. Honey trees?
Honey trees, yes. They're big ass trees that the bees make their hives inside.
Okay.
Of, right?
I was gonna say we're not talking about honey anymore.
In the specific tribe, they have like tribesmen that specialize in hunting the honey, harvesting the honey once a year, whatever the fuck it is. And this honey is special because of some ecological biological thing, where like certain plants that the bees ingest cause this specific honey in this location to grow I don't know if it's a bacteria or fungus, but it makes it a psychedelic honey.
Oh shit.
Where like you trip for like half a day. Like it's like a for real mushroom level amount of psychedelica in this honey. So
that's
these
pretty fucking dope.
Nepalese tribes, every so often go get their honey for the year and trip out. It's so cool.
Now they have a bunch of fucking American kids over there.
It is
doing their spirit mission over to Nepal to get the honey.
That has semi become a thing. Definitely the whole like psychedelic tourism for things like ayahuasca, like it's like ruining a lot of places.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Right. All right.
So I know you got some honorable mentions for us.
Yes. All right. So I couldn't place my finger on exactly why. Excuse me. But both of these artists came to mind for the topic of depersonalization. They're both very weird. And there's an emotional quality to both of them that I can't really explain. So we're going to start with this first artist, Swoon HQ, which is Caledonia.
You had it right the first time.
Why do I suck with names so much? Caledonia Curry. This woman does some of the coolest shit ever. So it's almost she works in many formats. I've seen her do stop motion, video, street art, a lot of installation stuff, to just traditional fine art, painting and drawing. Most of her pieces involve some form of painting, and her work is very gritty, very bold. It's childish, but very matured at the same time. She often will paint across doors or found objects or on the walls of brick, or just in non-traditional art places where it almost feels like whatever the inspiration that hit her, she just did it right there. And she'll wheat paste pieces on the street doing street art, and then she'll do big planned installation pieces also. And she is one of these artists that it is so clearly her work. I really enjoy a lot of what she does. It's a very particular aesthetic.
Yeah, I definitely, you can recognize, all of the pieces on her page they're so very different, but like you said, there's a certain style, a certain aesthetic that she works with, and they're absolutely beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Just like you said, gritty. I definitely get the kind of a sense of childlike wonder in some of them. Kind of it's just more fantastical in a way that sometimes, surrealist or abstract art isn't always, but it's more of a fun way.
Yeah, she often includes those abstract elements mixed with the dimension of whatever her piece is a part of or cut out or pasted on.
I really like the kind of cross-hatchy kind of lines, and it almost looks like, like prints and like cutouts from like lithograph kind of things on a lot of these. The way just the line quality, and I really like that look.
Yeah,
it's almost an industrial, but very I don't know. It's hard to describe it, but it's one that I recognize as, that's the cross-hatching thing, like bold cross-hatching lines is something I like to do with pen and ink a lot.
Yeah, very illustrative figures and human subjects mixed with those abstract elements. And even if it's a flat dimension piece, she gives everything so much depth. I really like the pieces, the installations that involve like the strings or multi-layers of 2D pieces that make this 3D environment.
Yeah.
And she, in the topics of her work and just what she depicts, she often is portraying a very strong female energy, or I'm not sure how to put it, but she captures people really well. And
yeah,
I like seeing artists that portray women that confidently in a non-sexual way. Not that it isn't sometimes like sexual in nature, but there's so many talented artists where like their only way of portraying women is like, this is a beautiful, like naked, sexy woman. And that's definitely not her vibe. She's going for something much more emotionally complicated.
Yeah.
She's just really refreshing. It almost feels like strange found objects that like this child prodigy drew all over with whatever materials they could find. And then that piece of art was kept by a parent for 20 years and the paper slightly molded and then had the second life when it was revealed to the air again. I don't know. It's the weird found strangeness.
Yeah. On the women thing, I in art you see, like you said, you see a lot of like portraying a positive, a powerful woman, and it's nude or like in lingerie or something, and it's like she's empowered, and I'm who are we to speak on something like that, but it's I've heard somewhere before, and I'm trying to think of the source of it. There's something like when you portray, in figure drawing, when you portray people in the nude, you give a sense of vulnerability because you're, in your natural, very natural state. When you portray someone like wearing their clothes or like, something that's more that the things that they put on to present to the world, you see the image you capture the image that they want to project kind of thing. It's more of like what they choose to, it's more of their personality, more of them.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I'm immediately like seeing how you can have a naked figure in what would be a sexual pose if they were wearing clothes, but because they're not, it doesn't come off as sexual the same way. It's more about the vulnerability and beauty in the figure.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated thing.
It is. It's it's as simple as different, using different camera angles and something like that. It's the perception of the that you paint it in or that you put it in. Because I think they do a great job of with portraits in general. I'm a big fan of portraiture and figure drawing and whatnot. But there's definitely energies you capture from some of these. You get the kind of a feel of a vibe of the person.
Yeah.
Or at least in the emotion that they were feeling in that moment.
And she captures their energy so well. Just really, really well. This second artist, this one's, so her page is on Instagram at SwoonHQ, SWOONHQ. She is awesome. Definitely check her out. Second honorable mention, Michael Garlington.
Yeah.
So this dude does some cool stuff. Now, to preface this, I saw this artist work in person maybe 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about this artist's work for a long time after, because it was the first thing I had seen in person in a long time that I thoroughly enjoyed, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about the person or the artist, their other work, but I really was impressed by it. These couple pieces just really like captured my imagination. I saw them at the Cincinnati Art Museum as part of a Burning Man psychedelic art tribute exhibit kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular piece, one of the pieces was in the front lobby of the museum, and you had to actually walk through it. It's the second piece I put aside, because the piece itself was basically a gateway that you had to walk through. It was maybe 25 feet tall, 20 feet tall. And it
arch.
Yeah, it looks like the European arches that they have in the capitals and shit like that. And this arch is composed of cardboard, and this picture really doesn't do it justice. You have to see it in person. But the entire archway is composed of these smaller two-dimensional black and white printouts of other art he has done. So from afar, it just looks like this big arch that you have to walk through to get through the museum. But as you get close, it's full of images everywhere. Every inch of it you could find and discover. Each nook and cranny, each piece of molding. There's something weird and different there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the arch itself has this, what kind of looks like fire coming off of it, but it's really a cloud of animals cut out and made into this like...
Oh, that's sick. That's really cool.
Yeah, it almost has a Monty Python vibe. A little bit. You know that style of animation?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like the old like cutout pictures, pasted like in black and white or dulled colors. It has a little bit of that energy, which doesn't sound cool, but it is done so well. Now, so it was cool to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, look at the panels of the gateway. See how there's like a bottom panel, a top panel on each side. Yeah. Now, every other panel and every, like in the archway itself, all throughout the piece, but especially in every panel, is a hole, a little peephole for your eye. It doesn't tell you to look there, right? You just, through observing it, you might notice a stream of light coming through one of the holes, and you kind of take a closer look. Inside each one of those peepholes of this massive installation is essentially another world. It's a diorama shelved inside of the sculpture.
Oh, that's dope.
So inside this sculpture, there's like 20 other sculptures, and you have to like walk around it and discover the little holes into these other bizarre rooms and realms.
That's very cool.
I know. I wish I could explain how cool each one of the little holes appear in, but they were so well done and interesting. It was really just a fascinating thing to explore. This artist, Michael Garlington, he does a lot of these installations. There's some like church ones. It often involves cutting out previous pieces of his work and like pasting out of these materials these bizarre creations. And he does these installations for museums, or even I think he's doing Burning Man this year. It'll be one of the big installations there. He just does some really cool stuff, and it's cool to see pictures on his Instagram, but in person it is such another level of interactive exploration in art.
Yeah, very, very fucking cool. I like I'm not big into the tarot stuff. I really like the artwork though, and especially their take on it. They have a very kind of stylized form of like they've taken like kind of photographs and remade like these images, and they're very cool. And some of them are sculptures, and like I think that's another the way it's done is
it's classy.
Yeah, it's almost like I don't want to say mocking. It's like giving tribute to, but it's like also obviously having fun with the design.
Yeah, both of these artists are playful.
Yeah. But it definitely creates a surrealism, but it's familiar because of the the imagery in it. It's very cool.
They really both have that nostalgia too. Like it doesn't look like fresh, crispy new art. It feels like it's been there, waiting for you to find it.
The devil card is very good. It's very fun.
These artists, their work is just waiting for you to discover. So check them both out. Michael Garlington can be found on Instagram at Michael Garlington1.
Hell yeah.
And we'll post links and all that stuff. I know we spent more time on these artists than we planned, but they're both so cool. Definitely.
Yeah, they're very cool artists. Yeah. So depersonalization and derealization. These are ones that if you've been listening to our show for a while, you might remember the Truman Show episode where I talked about some of the kind of goofy experiences I had after I moved up here, and it was like a weird kind of anxiety-ridden, kind of felt like the world was out to get me. Kind of felt like crazy. Some simulation theory shit, like it's just kind of weird shit going on in my head. A few months ago, I've read these words for the first time, and I looked them up, and it described perfectly what I had been feeling. And so I wanted to focus on it a little more.
How did that feel when you found out it was a real thing?
To see it put into words was uplifting. It was like, okay, cool. I'm not going crazy, to understand what's going on.
Was it surreal or more affirming?
It's affirming.
Gotcha.
Very affirming.
To clarify to someone potentially new, because after all, we did just make it on the top 100 chart of good pods. We are ranked 69.
Hell yeah. Fucking Billboard. Nice, dude. Fucking so nice.
So funny. But and thank you, Matt, by the way. Shouts out to Matt.
Yeah, shouts out to Matt in the studio with Matt.
Yep. But you went through this experience. How long ago was it?
Boy, it was almost 7 years ago.
Oh,
6 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. Why did I say that? Yeah. So
hang on, just a second.
Boop.
God damn it! I didn't sneeze. I thought I was gonna sneeze.
So you did go through this. How would you clarify it?
So in
mental
experience. Yeah, it was. In short, it was. I felt like everything was going really well in my life. Like I just moved up to Michigan. I got the job. I got the apartment that I wanted right off the bat. I got, and it was like you might have to wait like a month and a half. And then they called me the next day like, hey, actually someone's moving out next week. And I was like, all right, bet. And then I got the first job that I applied to, I got, and it was a really good position. And then I met someone who I fell in love with and started a relationship with like within the first like month. And then it was like everything's going really well. So it was a lot of it started with like waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then there was like a lot of weird feelings of like everything. I don't know, like it felt like I was in Truman Show kind of thing was what I related it to. 'Cause it felt like one of those things where like everyone's in on the joke that like, hey, look at him. Like, let's give him all these things. And then like, see how he reacts when we take it all away.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it was like, I couldn't place my finger on anything in particular that made it feel that way. There's just thoughts that were going through my head. Like that happened for a reason. That happened for a reason, or someone planned for that to happen.
This isn't what it seems to be. Something else
Right.
is
Yeah.
going on.
But the entire time I'm realizing like, this is nuts. Like, this is crazy. It's completely illogical. None of it makes sense. So it was like constantly questioning myself, but I was still having these thoughts, and it was really, concerning for a little while. Not enough that I sought out like help or anything, because that would require me to talk to professionals, and and we just don't do that.
Speak for yourself. I talk to too many of these fuckers.
I was gonna say go to therapy. It's good for you.
They won't leave me alone. They keep saying, "Come back, or we'll tell on you."
Yeah, come back, or you're going to jail. Little snitch.
So, I know we're gonna talk because that kind of made it sound like it was all positive, but with this paranoia. But there's
so like
other element. Do you want to go into it now, or do we want to break off more of what it is?
Yeah. Well, we can talk. We can get into the definitions here. Okay. I do want to say that like everything was going really well in the outside of my world, but it was just all in my head. And looking back, I could see that then too, but like looking back, like that's the number one thing I take away from it that I recognized was it was all just dumb shit I kept telling myself in my head. That was a huge factor when I was reading about this, and I was like, that's what it is, and that's what kind of locked in on it. Just
curious, did it feel did you feel anxious at the time, or did you know you were feeling any of that?
It would come in waves. It would come and go, and that's the other thing is like it wasn't constantly. It was just like kind of flash moments, gotcha, throughout the day.
Yeah,
that would become worse.
Gotcha.
And then thinking about it did make it worse, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
So depersonalization and derealization are specific symptoms of anxiety. Depersonalization can consist of a detachment within the self regarding one's mind or body, or being detached observer of oneself. Subjects feel they have changed in that the world has become vague, dreamlike, less real, lacking in significance, or being outside reality while looking in. It can be described as feeling like one is on autopilot and that one's sense of individuality or selfhood has been hindered or suppressed. It's estimated that 75% of all people may have this connection from reality once in their lifetime.
I will point out, for me, like we'll talk later about the involvement of how drugs can relate to this, but specifically, if anyone else has the experience as a benzo addict, to me, this sounds just like a moderate dose of benzos, where you're on autopilot. You're not out of body, but you're in the back lobe of your brain, just kind of watching yourself function, and you feel separated from the world. Now, I know that doesn't include like the anxiety and those other parts of it, but that kind of displacement that's like my closest relation to a specific feeling.
Mm. Remind me, benzos is like Xanax and shit?
Xanax, yeah. Okay. Klonopin, Valium, all the fun ones that make you forget the pain you're suffering in.
Cool and fun.
Yeah.
So depersonalization usually coincides a lot with derealization. They are separate on a couple terms, but usually people that are going through depersonalization or feeling that have symptoms of derealization also, or vice versa.
So to be clear, the disorder it's for short DDD?
Yeah, we haven't gotten to that yet.
Okay.
Yeah. So derealization is a mental state where you feel detached from your surroundings. People and objects around you may seem unreal, and you may even feel as if there's a wall or a barrier between yourself and the world around you. Even so, you're aware that this altered state isn't normal. So it's like being like, there's a lot of times people like do describe it that way, where they feel like there's like a wall around them, and they're watching life unfold around them. and everything just seems like a dream, or it seems, like it's not actually, like it's happening, but it's not real, or it's just really goofy. Like the Truman Show thing, I would point more to some of that was derealization feelings, where it was like I just felt like everything around me is false in a way.
It's almost like breaking the fourth wall in your consciousness. Like in a show or whatever, the character looks at the camera, breaks the fourth wall. It kind of sounds like there's a mental breaking of that fourth wall where you're like, why are all these walls here? Like, what was I doing here? When the one wall is broken, you can see the rest of the strange room you realize you're in.
Yeah, you look God in the eyes and look for an answer.
Right. So these symptoms last until the stressor or trauma is away or not actively affecting you. It usually fades away naturally. Sometimes when it happens with less obvious causes, like panic attacks or a bad drug experience, your brain doesn't recognize what led to the feeling, and that causes more fear and stress, which can create a cycle that makes it last longer than normal. When you have repeated instances and reoccurring experiences of these symptoms over an extended period of time, you may be diagnosed with depersonalization, derealization disorder. And to be clear, it really is in the DSM-5, doctors can diagnose you. This is a real disorder that, like you said earlier, maybe 75% of people experience some element of this feeling at some point in their life.
Right.
But the combination of both depersonalization and derealization, often and regularly, can become this disorder, DDD.
Yeah. Depersonalization, derealization disorder, also known as DDD, is characterized in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual DSM-5 as a persistent or recurrent depersonalization.
God, that's a hell of a sentence, though, man.
Yeah, I'm going to take that one from the top. So, depersonalization, derealization disorder, also known as DDD, is characterized in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual DSM-5 as persistent or recurrent depersonalization symptoms in the presence of intact reality testing, and isn't better described by other psychiatric or medical disorders. So the key part of that is the intact reality testing. So what that means is you know the difference between what's your thoughts and reality. You recognize that, like, you're thinking these things, but it's not real. It's like you're still having these thoughts and these feelings, but you can still recognize that it's different from reality.
Yeah. And that, I struggled to understand that at first. There's a similarity with certain subsects of OCD where some people with certain forms of OCD will believe they have these other conditions, and they're constantly questioning if they have them. Where you're aware that you aren't. And I didn't realize that. What was it called? Presence of intact reality testing.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's so crucial, because I initially thought, like, the DDD is like a part of a delusional thinking or paranoia, like in a bipolar, or like a psychosis symptom of another disorder.
Right.
But when you have all of the things aligned right, and you're constantly questioning if it's real or not, it's more likely to be its own thing.
Yeah. And really, that's the main divider between, that and between, depersonalization, derealization, and things like schizophrenia, is because
there's other factor, but on that, sure.
That's one for sure, that, like, it's that reality testing thing is a much harder thing to come across when you're dealing with things that can lead to psychosis and whatnot.
Right. That's such a weird dividing line. Like, very few mental illnesses or conditions have that dividing line on you being cognizant of what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
It's odd.
Yeah. But the fact that there's enough information that they've been able to pick that apart where it's like there's enough instances of this symptom, but people are aware that it's a not real, or they feel like they are aware of how crazy it is. Like that's also really interesting to me that so many people do experience this.
Definitely.
And I'd never heard anyone else ever talk about it.
I haven't either. I had been aware of both of the conditions on their own, or both of the words on their own, depersonalization, derealization, but I had never heard it together as this unique disorder. An estimated 1 to 2% of the population is affected by DDD. It involves a constant feeling of being disconnected from one's body, like an outside observer of their life, and sometimes a feeling of being separated from one's surroundings. DDD is thought to be connected to stress and trauma.
Symptoms of DDD can be triggered by severe stress, which includes failed relationships, financial problems, work-related issues, emotional abuse as a child, neglect, physical abuse, witnessing domestic violence, or the unexpected death of a loved one. It can also be related to depression, anxiety, substance use. The symptoms are very stressful and make it difficult for the person to function well in home, work, school. They can also feel emotionally and physically numb. I definitely felt a lot of that. Not a lot of the physical numbness, but the emotional numbness of usually it was when I was alone, and it would just kind of, I don't know, it just felt separated from everything. And at first I thought that was just because I was on my own really for the first time. I lived alone kind of when I was in Toronto, but I had 5 roommates.
Yeah.
So I wasn't alone. I
definitely get a lot of the derealization part or the numbness from my depression and past drug use stuff. I definitely know, I feel like I can definitely relate to the feeling, and I've definitely been in very disassociated states, but I can't quite understand the element of delusion and questioning of what your role in it is, the intact part. And the part you just read about it being related to stressors and stress and trauma.
Yeah.
That I've definitely see, it almost feels like there's a tiny bit of an overlap with PTSD.
Yeah. Some of the research I was looking up, definitely they separated from PTSD. And I didn't look at the specific factors on that, but they classify it differently.
Definitely.
PTSD symptoms are different than depersonalization, or maybe it's you might experience depersonalization with PTSD, but it in itself does not, cannot be ruled as part of PTSD alone.
I guess I should have said more. I see the similarities, but I also could see how, let's say one of us goes through a super violent, tragic event, right?
Yeah.
Now, let's say that event would be so impactful that it is likely to cause mental problems down the line. It's just obvious if somebody goes through something that fucked up, there are going to be lifelong repercussions, right?
Right.
So let's say that's the given. I could see how from person to person and based on your brain, all the factors, right? Nature, nurture, whatever. I could see how maybe in a situation like that, there's the trauma has happened and there will be an equal and opposite reaction to your mental state. Right. And maybe sometimes it could develop as PTSD, and at other times maybe it develops as DDD. That's all just me kind of playing with it. But I see how, a person's reaction to those stressors or trauma could, can kind of change which diagnosis or experience you end up going through.
Yeah. And there might be a thing about because I know PTSD is one of those things you kind of carry it for the rest of your life kind of thing.
Not always, but typically when PTSD is talked about, I feel like most of the time people are talking about like chronic, lifelong PTSD. Yeah.
The at least the depersonalization, derealization stuff, like that can go away very quickly. That can be gone,
That's so
within a few
strange.
hours or like by the end of the day kind of thing, usually.
I assume, they're only diagnosing you with the disorder if it's prolonged.
Yeah.
Yeah. So while people with DDD feel detached from their body and report emotional or physical numbing, actual subjective body perception is unaffected, and their heartbeat is like normal, healthy people. That's interesting.
Yeah, I left that in there because I thought I never would have thought to look up something like that, but because it's like an anxiety thing
Yeah.
that, that could be,
See-
concerning to someone that has, heart problems and, is experiencing this.
Well, I take it to mean more, I see your point, but more that opposed to like an acute stress reaction or a panic attack, it's not like your body is going through that parasympathetic cycle or reaction where your brain's firing fight or flight.
Yeah, you're in constant fight mode.
Right, and your heart's amped up. It's more your body stays the same and your mind is dissociating or yeah.
There is a part of that we'll get into the details of in a bit, but it's more of instead of fight or flight, it just goes into like super defense mode. Like puts up that's what, the feeling of the bubble around you. Like it literally, you're putting up barriers to like withdraw and figure out what the problem is.
Straight bubble boy.
Yeah, bubble boy.
I feel like that's comparable to the third option of freeze.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Interesting.
So anxiety and depression are common to go alongside with the disorder as well. However, a study found that depression and anxiety did not alter the associations of depersonalization with intrareceptive accuracy. So even with the depression and anxiety symptoms that you're having aside from the depersonalization, you still have the, intact reality testing. Unlike psychotic disorders, people with depersonalization disorder are aware that what they feel is not real and found that patients with DDD do not display major impairments in selective attention, cognitive inhibition, and working memory. However, slight neurophysical deficits were revealed and confirmed in terms of distractibility, short-term memory reduction, and the inability to suppress stress-related arousal states under cognitive task demand.
Now that part reminds me of depression.
Yeah.
Stuff where like you still might be able to function mostly normal, but there is that lack of or just a slight cognitive impairment. Like
everything's running on low efficiency mode
to try to. It's like your heart bringing hypothermia, keeping the blood to the center of the body to protect your vital brain parts.
Your brain parts.
Oh, the brain parts. Got to keep the blood in those brain parts to stay warm.
So we're gonna talk about some of the main symptoms of depersonalization and derealization. I got a lot of this information from Sean O'Connor. He has a book, The Depersonalization Manual. He lived with depersonalization symptoms for about 2 years, and he recovered thanks to a lot of therapy and is trying to share his experience and try to help people work their way through it. Because it is a very scary thing when you're going through it. It feels like the whole thing of it, because it's cyclical. When you're, I had it for a few months, so it wasn't nearly as bad as, a couple years, but it lasted longer than it typically does. So
real quick, before you go into the symptoms, can I interject a couple things?
Please.
So I do want to point out, we probably should have said it, but this is both, like we researched this because we're interested in it. It's so fascinating the way the human mind can find ways to protect itself.
Yeah.
And we wanted to research it because we find it interesting and because of your experience with it.
Yeah.
And that's something, but we definitely don't know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. Don't diagnose yourself based on this.
No, and
Go see a doctor.
That said, I will say I did personally find Sean O'Connor a little sus. I'm not crazy about him, but because we're largely talking about what the experience is like for a lot of people, and in that sense, everything he described, people really liked what he does because he understands it very well. Yeah. And his experience on it was valuable information too.
And I will also say my experience with him didn't go beyond watching a YouTube video.
Sure.
And I recognized what he was talking about as, all the things that he mentioned through the video. I recognized that as symptoms that I felt.
Well, to that point though, this isn't like new. It's been around.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there isn't a ton of, from what I understand, there was research on it. It is an official diagnosis. It is recognized by the medical world, the world of psychology, psychiatry, but it doesn't seem widely spoken about or explored extensively. So when somebody goes through something like this, there isn't a ton of information as easily available. So you're more likely to go to people making videos online about their own personal experiences.
Right.
Which is a good and bad thing, I think.
Yeah. First one is symptoms. So the first one I have on here is feeling cut off from reality. Feeling like you're living in a dream or the people and things around you aren't real. This is apparently it's actually a natural reaction to trauma and grief. Depersonalization is actually your brain's way of protecting you from said trauma. Like I said, it's building up these walls to separate you from society. When you go through the cyclical feeling of like when your brain doesn't know what the stressor is, it's just kind of sits there on defense mode, trying to find what it is and break it apart. And it's working so hard and it's in stress while it's doing it. So it keeps pointing out things that might be the issue or might be the problem. But part of that is when you withdraw in your brain, it feels like a physical divide from reality.
That's classic Neo waking up, realizing he's in the Matrix, or Truman in the Truman Show. That disconnect of like, something else is going on here. This isn't
right.
The reality I thought it was. Disconnect. Feeling like you're not real. This to me is a scarier one. There's other psychological conditions where that have that same depersonalization where you don't feel like you're a live person anymore. That kind of emotional feeling that's very scary to me. So with this, it's more like feeling like a robot, or that your emotions or emotions aren't your own. Like you're watching someone else control your body or voice. I know I've felt that with various things, and often with depression, where I feel like I'm watching a movie of my life. I know I'm making the choices, but it doesn't really feel like I'm all the way present. Again, it's part of a natural defense mechanism. The separation you feel is like a shield from trauma or stressors.
Yeah. So you have did you feel like a ghost? Like, you ever thought to yours like,
yes.
I definitely, like when I was a kid for sure, there was definitely little feelings like that. But like, felt like, is this even real? Am I corporeal right now? Like been sitting alone somewhere and like, it's like almost like if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. See, like if no one's acknowledging, if you're alone by yourself and no one knows you're there and no one acknowledges you, are you really there? Are you really real?
So I get the ghost gushes, the ghost vibes.
You can't say that on recording.
The ghost gushes. I get the ghost gushes a lot, dude. Like, I really, like, my memory of childhood, even before drugs, is very blurry, very, very sketchy, because I really did feel like a sad ghost boy just floating around class to class, drifting away on the playground. Like, I with depression stuff, I really do understand that feeling of like, I'm here, but I am so far gone, really separated from what's going on around me. The part that is much more foreign to me is the feeling like it isn't real, or that maybe it is this way. That intact reality part is very different. But I definitely get the ghost vibes a lot.
So when you were little, you were a sad ghost boy.
Yes.
When I was little on the playground, when I was on the playground, I wanted to be like Goku.
Now, I did do a lot of running around, like pretending I was a dinosaur too.
That's fair.
I got in trouble for biting a couple girls.
That's fucking rules.
I was a velociraptor and I could run so fast, faster than Sonic the Hedgehog.
Just an absolute menace. Just
a sad dinosaur biting women. There were so many red flags.
So many red flags. Oh, God damn it. The next symptom I have here is a fear of going insane.
Yeah, I do not understand this one. This is a weird one for me.
Yeah, so this is a thing like, you know, like they say, like if you're going crazy, you wouldn't know better. You wouldn't realize it. You would just the world kind of gets crazier around you.
Yeah, people say that one a lot.
That makes this worse, because especially when you feel like
it's a positive feedback loop.
Yeah, when you feel like you can accurately, recognize that this isn't real, this is crazy. Then you think like, am I going crazy? Is this how it starts? So being worried that the symptoms get worse and cause schizophrenia or severe mental damage is a part of depersonalization, derealization, that really intense struggle against it. However, with depersonalization, your reality testing remains intact, so no matter how bad your symptoms get, you always know the difference between your thoughts and reality. It's like the example that Sean O'Connor gave in the video was, it's like worrying that your smoke detector is going to burn down your house. It's only there to try to protect you. Okay.
See, what I don't relate to that part of it, the fear of going insane, is, I mean, I've been in a fair amount of legitimate psychotic states, and there's times like I could tell I was spiraling into that psychotic state. But my like brand of weirdness or craziness, whatever, I was fueled by it. For me, it was exciting, and I could like embrace going Joker mode and fucking myself up more. It's like, I'm going crazy. Like, let's add some uppers, no sleep, and get really sick from not eating and get really wild. Like,
so you were already, though, you weren't in your right mind.
Yeah.
Going about that. Yeah. So the difference is you are in your right mind other than these symptoms. So when you feel that and you start to get scared of it,
you're like, what the fuck is that?
It fuels it and makes it worse because you get more anxiety from getting worried about it.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I haven't had that personal experience with that. To me, that sounds concerning. Like, I get that.
Oh, yeah. That was the absolute worst part of it, in my opinion.
Yeah. I get that with physical health stuff. When you think you're getting sick, or like you have a lump in your arm or some weird shit, and you're like, oh my God, what is that?
You always jump to the worst.
It's almost like the same thing, but for your mind. You're like, what is going on? Why do I feel this way? And it feeds into it. That would freak me out, man.
I definitely experienced that a lot. And still, you being able to like check yourself and recognize that it's in your head, but then it would keep coming back, and like different little things would pop up, different little, thoughts would pop up, and you're like, that's fucked. I know it's not real, but it just made you think that it was getting worse.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
So this was like 7 years ago, your Truman Show experience, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'll say that I know at the time I probably wasn't very helpful because I was a mess and you were out of town. I am a little curious why or even if you have an occasional nagging feeling of it, why would you question your sanity? And I ask that because you are outwardly or even inwardly 99% of the time, you're such a like strong, self-assured, like laid back but confident with yourself and your mind type of person. To me, it seems a little odd that you could have a legitimate worry for your sanity because you seem so sharp, you know?
Well, it was because of all of the thoughts of that were illogical, all of the thinking that like everyone's watching you kind of thing, or thinking that like everything is being done to manipulate you in some way, like just everything it's not real, it's like a stage kind of thing, and everyone's just actors on the stage that you're a part of. And like all of these thoughts that keep coming in, and you have to keep reminding yourself that's crazy, it's not logical. But every time you do that and then you still continue to have the thoughts, that was the part that was like, am I starting to lose it? If I start to buy it, am I eventually going to start to believe this shit and buy into it?
Now, let me ask my follow-up. And it was interesting how you answered part of that, because my next question was going to be, where do you feel like, those thoughts or questions are coming from? And I want to preface it by saying, I know at different points we've talked about how random thoughts that pop in a person's head, or obsessive thoughts, or things that type of thinking that is traditionally thought of as like out of your control, or like you're not responsible for your thoughts, but that you are for your actions. I know we've talked a bit about that, and I do think there is like an onus on a person that those thoughts to claim responsibility for thoughts, even if they're not the thoughts. Like, we didn't like craft the thought, but they were our thoughts. And I believe you answered the first question by saying it felt like those thoughts were coming in towards you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So do you feel like that is related to anxiety, that those thoughts are flooding in, where it feels more like from an outside source than the internal thought?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of that. I can definitely say if there's like a source to why I had those specific thoughts. I think that the reason why I was like concerned that like everything's a stage and, people are like manipulating things around me for me kind of thing. Like, I think the reason that I had those specific kind of delusions was, because everything was going really well. Suddenly, like after, a particular couple years of kind of hardship, things were suddenly going very, very well, very, very quickly. And I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, like waiting for someone to pull back the rug and say, ha ha, fucking stupid. Like, I can't believe you thought this was real, kind of thing.
Like, you don't deserve to have it like this. It's supposed to be fucked up because that's how it was.
So, yeah, that's what part of it was. And the other one was, even after learning about this, realizing like where it stemmed from, because that was the thing I had to think about. Like, well, what would have stemmed that? Because I moved up here and everything was going really well, but it was the year prior, before I moved up here. It was less than a year before my grandparents died, and it was really sudden, very traumatic. It was a murder-suicide, and it was so sudden and abrupt that like it really kind of brought our family to like kind of a crashing halt. And I'm sure there's still grief that I know there's definitely still grief I haven't like gone through yet.
Sure.
For that. But it was I can definitely link it to, probably that, very specific situation is probably what, brought this on. That mixed with the stress of coming to a new place and being on my own for the first time probably also, brought that back in. But that was without a doubt one of the most single stressing and anxiety inducing moments in my life, for years.
Can I follow that up?
Yeah.
So, like, I know privately we've talked about this, but I even on the podcast, you might not talk about that element of their lives, but you often talk about them, and I know you were very close with them, and that was like, I mean, it's just so wild. But
yeah,
how long? So you go through this trauma, right?
yeah.
And it affects you, your family, and that's one of those things you never can prepare for.
Right.
So how long after, like, I believe you said it was like a year after, was it this delayed reaction to that? Like
I think, I think so. And I think it was, like I said, it's a combination of a bunch of things kind of coming at me, because I definitely hadn't processed it by that time. I spent the entire next year, like, I just rode my bike constantly, and I, kind of went out a lot, and I drank a lot, and I tried to, like, deal with it in my own way while trying to escape other shit. And then I think once I got up here, and like I said, everything was going so well when I got up here, and I don't know if it was, a feeling of the stress that brought that on, or just my own internal fear of, something's got to go wrong, because it's everything's going well. It's going too well. And so it could very well have been my own internal kind of subconscious thoughts that were pulling back into that.
Now, let me ask you this, and tell me if you felt this at all, or if this is totally off base, right? So after that happens, the next year, like you said, you were highly engaged in escapism, and it was really shitty, right?
Yeah.
Like, just a shitty time. And then you have this big life change, right? You're moving to a new city. Most of the people in your life aren't going to be coming with you. You're kind of on your own, new place, massive life change. For myself, when I go through, or when I have gone through really shitty trauma things, it's like it might ruin, or like just completely like dominate a year or years of your life, right? Mm-hmm. But you can't feel that intense level of trauma, or like a sadness, all the negative feelings 100% of the time, right? Like, you can be super depressed and still watch a dumbass show with a friend and laugh, throughout it, but feel terrible still. Yeah. Right? Is part, like, for me, sometimes if especially the death of a loved one, for myself, there almost comes a certain feeling of guilt when I forget about them for a second, and feel happy or laugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like there might be any connection of, like, I know it's a bit extreme, but like the level of dissociation between, like, this terrible event, a terrible time in my life, and then brand new life farther removed from it?
Yeah, there is definitely that, because I definitely remember feeling like I'm running away from it. And moving up here, there's definitely that thought of, like, and part of it, like, I was in a way, because I just realized I need a change. I need something to change. I had shit going for me down there. It's not like I couldn't have, stayed down there or whatever, but it's just, I needed a change of pace, and I had been thinking about it prior, but it was that really that lit the fire under my ass. Like, I need to not be here.
When you look back on it, do you, like you just said, it felt like an element of running away? When you, like, reflect on it, do you feel like you actually were running away?
No. I No, I think in majority it was definitely a move that like I said, I'd recognized before, any of this happened, that there wasn't really room for significant growth for me there unless I wanted to go work at like a resort or something and like do some crazy hours doing, dumb shit. I could make a lot of money and do a lot of cool shit, but I didn't want to live in Tampa. I don't want to live in Orlando.
Yeah, you
kind of thing, that would have sucked.
Of your own.
So if I'm going to move anywhere, I wanted to move somewhere else. And there was also, that because of the loss, it made me realize, there's limited time to spend with, family that I love. So at the time it was either Denver or Detroit, and Denver kind of fell out as an option. So I moved to Detroit because my cousin lives up here. So it was like to spend more time with him, who I've always looked up to a lot. So, to try to rekindle that, that friendship, that relationship. Not that it ever really went away, but he started a family. Yeah. He's got to do his own thing.
Definitely.
So to be able to spend more time with him now was the goal.
When really hard things happen, I've noticed a tendency for myself, and it's often shown in like movies or like just strong male characters, right? There's this tendency to like, they go through a trauma and then to overcome it, it's rarely framed as running away. Instead, it's often they have to go to a place to mourn. Right? Like you have to go away and deal with it for a while and come back. And I think sometimes it actually is running away. And I think oftentimes you go through something like that, and even if you're not going away to mourn, it's like a lot of times the people you talk to a lot, or your friends, like a distance grows, right? Yeah. And sometimes it needs to be that way to have that opportunity to look inward and heal what you need to heal, stitch up those wounds before you can go back out, because other people are going to see you all cut up still. You're not going to be 100% when you come back from your,
Yeah. And I mean, part of that also, like my entire plan when I first moved up here was like, I'm just going to grind. I didn't give a fuck about meeting new people, especially because part of it was like I moved up here to spend time with my cousin. So like I got him up here. I don't fucking need anybody else. I was going to, work my fingers down and fucking just go, make some money up and try to get my shit together that way. And that, like I said, that was my initial goal. It didn't work out that way at all. I mean, I definitely did work a lot, but I met people and like almost immediately. And it's cool. It's definitely great. It turned out for the better, but my goal was definitely to come up here and either not think about it or not think about it as much so quickly. I think that, going away, separating yourself physically from the environment, as a way to process it, whether it's just, processing that the way that you're handling it and then, processing the information as a whole. Like there was a lot of the time where it just didn't feel real. And it probably for a good year and a half or so after it happened, it was like, it just didn't feel real. Still trying to like make that come to grips with that.
And I know when we were writing this episode, it kind of came into play like, we can talk about this disorder. And, I've heard, like we've talked extensively about what this experience for you personally was like. But when it's put in the context of the disorder itself, how it typically manifests, and then that juxtaposition between life going pretty good and then something tragic happens and then moving away, new life, that juxtaposition, that I see how that could be very disorienting.
Yeah, I didn't really think of it that way. Like when you said the kind of guilt you feel. Yeah, I never really thought about it that way, but you're almost 100% right. Like I definitely feel like that could be a thing.
Dude.
Because I definitely felt that a lot when I moved up.
For me, that is...
And also like guilt of like, I'm moving up here to get away from it, but also I'm leaving my parents behind. And now they have to deal with it down here on their own.
Yeah.
That was another part of it.
Man.
Not that I didn't think they were capable, but, it still sucks.
Yeah, dude. I think the guilt and shame are two of the strongest fucking emotions ever. Shame is a huge thing that gets talked about in addiction stuff that I think people overlook. But the guilt, for me, that was one of the hardest feelings to have to deal with, was when someone dies, and especially that first time. And for me, my best friend, my brother, committing suicide, that feeling of forgetting just day by day, a little, an inch of skin at a time, forgetting what their face looks like, right?
Yeah.
That not being able to picture them quite the same or remember the sound of their voice. That guilt to me was like the hardest bridge to cross. Guilt can change everything. So altering.
The remembering their face is a big one. Remembering their voice was another one. After it happened, it was maybe 3 weeks to a month later, we were in their house and we were going through their stuff, and we checked their answering machine. They had a landline with an answering machine, and we hit the button on it and heard my grandpa's voice for the first time in 3 weeks, and that was a really you had to catch your breath kind of thing. 'Cause it was it realized I haven't heard him. I never thought I'd hear his voice again. And then hearing that was a big thing. And I remember when I started to forget his face very specifically, because I thought that with other relative deaths that I don't remember their face as much. And part of that was going to the funeral kind of thing, which is why I don't like to do that anymore. But they had they didn't have a funeral for them. We did a cremation thing. So I remember it was maybe about a year or so later, and I was constantly focused on, not constantly, but every day or so I would think about them and think about, their faces. And, I remember the features started to go, not to come as quickly. And I was oh shit, it's starting. And I would still try to remember. And of course I have pictures and stuff, but it's not, having that mental image is important too.
So important.
Yeah.
Now, can I pull at two more little strings?
Yeah, man.
Okay. So if you could talk to yourself during that period, I know I asked you previously, did it feel like you were altered, in a different state of mind? And you mentioned slightly, right?
Yeah. So it felt like, I don't know, it felt like I was definitely still me. There was a general sense of a low grade anxiety that my body, I didn't even recognize at the time as being that. It was more of what I recognized was these kind of intrusive thoughts and these feelings that would just kind of come up out of nowhere. And then I had to react to it, which took a lot of energy.
I would imagine that makes you come off either just tired, slightly dazed, or just a little edgy.
Yeah.
If you, I'm sure, if you've been around someone outside of an immediate circle that had just gone through a trauma and they're in that trauma reaction state kind of thing, and they're just kind of off.
Yeah, somewhat, yeah.
Do you think, was it disorienting enough? Let me put it this way, that let's say I hadn't seen you in a month, but we were still talking, but I didn't know what had been going on, and I just showed up randomly. Do you think I would sense that you were not in your normal mind?
No.
You think you could?
Yeah, I definitely, I'm positive I didn't show signs of it.
That's interesting. It's that for you, or this experience at least was that internalized.
Yes.
Okay. All right. last big question, whatever you want to go with. But
Yeah.
if you could go back to that time, not necessarily just about the things that happened, but what would you tell yourself, or what advice would you give about the state you were in the year after, when you start getting into the DDD stuff? Like what would you tell yourself if you could talk to yourself then?
I mean, I would absolutely just tell myself, like, hey, like, take a step back from it. Because the thing that makes it worse is worrying about it, the perpetual nature of that. One of the other things I looked up, one of the other videos I saw was a guy that was talking about it, and he said what he recommends people do, especially with derealization symptoms, is to just accept it and say, you know what, I'm fine. Like, or people that were having, DDD on a more recurring things where, like, they could, to the point where they recognized it onsetting. They'd say, like, oh, cool, the next couple weeks of my life are going to be fucked up. And it's like, just accept it. And you just, like, let it roll a little bit. Don't fight it so much. And then by doing that, by truly doing that, not just saying it, but you are decreasing the anxiety you have towards it. Thinking, like, okay, well, this is just going to happen. I'm just going to deal with it. And I feel like I do that with my depression. And it doesn't work the same with depression, obviously, but I still feel like that helps. So, I feel like, at least by recognizing what you're going through is what it is. No, if anything, I would just be more reaffirming to myself, like, you're dealing with this. These are real thoughts, but though you're not going crazy thing, that would be huge. It's real what you're dealing with. Go see a doctor, maybe.
Yeah.
Go see a psychiatrist, something.
Yeah, you probably could have had, like, not that, like, going now, you couldn't still work through some of those things, but going at a time where there were these acute symptoms or reactions to things definitely could be more beneficial.
Yeah. And I mean, like, by the time that I, had gone through it and it was ending, you had asked me earlier this week, did it feel like it was gone? Was there like a period of waning? And, like, I really don't remember. I feel like it was just kind of gone. Like, it might have been like a period where it just got less severe, but I don't remember it like that. I just remember all of a sudden realizing, like, oh, I haven't had these thoughts in a little while.
Do you attribute that to healing or just passage of time?
I mean, like, healing in big air quotes.
Sure.
In a way that I, had either, maybe I had come to accept it, or maybe I don't, because I really don't remember. Maybe I had, I don't really know what led to that, because like I said, I didn't go talk to anybody about it. I definitely never spoke to anyone about it.
Yeah, you told me about it for the first time, like, early into this podcast, like a year ago or whatever, a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I brought it up, like, check out this crazy shit, and you were like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Okay. Not to throw Sam and you do this a bit. I've noticed with you quite a bit. You both are like strong, but internal and kind of solemn beings.
You know what? I haven't hung out with Sam all that much, but in the few times that I've definitely felt that he's like very quiet to himself, like probably deals with everything within his own head.
Yeah. That vibe where, like, I feel like you went through a whole Truman Show in your mind and didn't tell it to, like, your closest friend for 5 years.
I don't understand it either. I don't know. And I think there is definitely an element of, like, not trusting people. There was definitely an element of that.
Yeah.
But once again, it would come and go. There would be, like, times where it was like, how can I possibly trust anyone? And then, like, almost immediately afterward, it was like, that's fucking retarded. That's so stupid.
Yeah. I would get that with, like, paranoid drug stuff. Where that part turns on and off. Man.
Yeah, it's so hypocritical of me too, because my number one go-to I tell people is like, talk about it.
Right.
And yeah, that was a whole time where like I just didn't.
Well, the part of that,
usually I'm also, and I think afterward for sure, I became a lot more forthcoming with my life. I've mentioned this in another older episode too, is like I don't see any reason to like lie about shit or like hold shit back. Like I'm not out here making moves, you know, like I don't need anyone to like not know what the fuck I'm up to.
Yeah.
I like talking about my life. That's how you meet people that are into the same shit as you.
Yeah.
So, you know, how you relate to people on a deeper level than just like cool ass weather we're having.
It does make sense in a way though, because what you're dealing with, you know, maybe the time it took to like let other people into like, hey, this is a window into this world. You know, I got stuck in for a little bit. I didn't stay here, but this is the weird place I was in for a while.
Yeah,
like,
I'm definitely down talking about it now for sure. Like I'll tell anybody about this shit.
But maybe that's the amount of time like you needed to get to the place where that was okay, because you were going through something very, very intense and intimate. Like that's not a normal thing or an easy thing to let people in on. And you'd be letting people in on how it truly, that's the thing, is to tell someone like, hey, this is a window into the weird world I went. You're telling them more than just what happened. You're telling them how it deeply affected you and your mind in an intimate way.
Right.
And that's an intimidating thing to share with someone.
Yeah.
Not just the trauma, but the reaction to, right?
And I realized the part of like not trusting people, it went to a way, because it wasn't like I can't trust people. It was like I don't know who I can trust kind of thing. It was like I'm trying to think of the best example. The best example I can think of was it's like, let's say you're a spy and you're infiltrating this building or whatever.
007.
Yeah, but like, you know, you're kind of like in plain sight, like you're there in disguise or whatever, and they're like giving you the tour of the facility or whatever. And then you're hitman and you stole a costume from somebody. And then it's like, if I let them know that I know that I'm suspicious of them, you know, then they'll change things so that, you know, so that like they'll change it up so like it won't be as obvious. Like it'll still be going on, it just won't be as obvious. So in my head, like what I had closest to relate to it with the Truman Show, and it was like, you know, when, you know, if he were to like say something like, oh, you know, like telling his friend like this shit's going on, like then they back off, you know, they try to like corral it and cool it down a little bit.
Yeah, the guards change formation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Huh. All right, should I do visual symptoms?
Yeah, let's keep talking about symptoms.
Okay. Tunnel vision, static, floaters. I get floaters a lot. I like floaters, and I like pressing my eyes and watching all the pretty colors.
Yeah, man. Hell yeah.
Distorted or blurry vision, altered distance, size of objects. When you're anxious, it naturally makes your eyes more sensitive to detecting movements, that fast twitch reaction. It does this by widening of the pupils. It's really an old school primal evolutionary trait used more often when our ancient ancestors had to deal with much more real and sudden danger of predators in their world, right?
Yeah,
Spotting that jaguar in the jungle real
Damn
quick.
right, yeah.
This is a snappy episode. I got my snap percentage is way higher than this.
It's like spoken word, baby.
Their keen awareness is what kept them alive. And that's why that trait persisted in our genetics.
I was going to say, let's do a whole episode in spoken word, but that's a terrible, terrible idea.
God, yeah. So it's really funny,
fucking deaf poetry jam over here. While experiencing anxiety symptom, your brain goes into a defense mode. It widens your pupils, and so you're like preparing for attacks from your peripherals. And what that results in is you have too much visual information coming in at once, and your concentration is like going all over the place. It's overactive, trying to compensate for all this information coming in. You're trying to catch up with what you're seeing. Your anxiety makes you hyper aware of your own vision. You're noticing things that are part of normal human vision, but you're focusing and overanalyzing the minor details that we usually filter out. So like the floaters and stuff like that, like you can see them all the time. That's like a regular thing. You just kind of gotta, you can tune into that kind of thing, but like it's harder you can't just do that, I guess. Maybe you can, I don't know. But like you filter it out because it's not essential. It's like you can always see your nose. Your nose is always in your vision. Oh my God. But you just filter it out.
If you want to fuck up a room full of stoners, just say that as you walk past their stupid little smoke circle, and then you fuck everybody up for the rest of the night. Do you guys know you can always see your nose, and you'll watch...
So I don't remember particularly having a lot of visual symptoms with the Truman Show incident. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's probably a lot of like sensitivity to light, but I have a lot of that anyways. I get like migraines and like neck issues and stuff from the kind of work I do, which pulls on the back of your neck or whatever, and that's connected to your eyes in a way.
Eyeball muscles.
Yeah, your eyeball muscles. The strings connect, holding the balls in the back of your head.
I also would imagine the more intense visual aspects, that's probably most prevalent in the super acute cases, or when it's peakingly intense, because like you said earlier, like the brain often and the heart stays at a normal pace, those type of things. Like these more visual aspects, I would imagine it is more when it's closer, the anxiety levels are closer to anxiety attack, acute stress reaction, or even PTSD. I would imagine most of the time, the visual symptoms are not very present.
Right. So tell me what we got next here.
Distorted perception of time.
It's so fucking weird.
Now, this is one I struggle with for very different reasons, but the feeling that time goes by too fast, time lapses, gaps, or distorts. I have serious time problems, and I think mine is from brain damage. I very much...
Oh, wow.
Dude, some of my overdoses, I went without oxygen for a long time, and I've had a couple head injury kind of things. Like, my brain has changed, and it's weird because as I've
you just smoothed out all them wrinkles in there,
dude. It's so squeaky clean, bro. But like this sounds weird. In the last 5 years, I have gotten so much smarter. I am so smart. I'm like a genius now compared to my dummy self, and I feel like my brain's recovered in a lot of ways. But I've also noticed like more long-term effects of some of the things that happened to my brain also. In time, I struggle with it so much. Like it feels, we did a little bit of an episode about it. Like it just feels so abstract. So this part, I don't understand where I am in time sometimes.
Yeah.
I get this part, and in an altered state like that, I can only imagine with like, because for me it has nothing to do with anxiety. I can only imagine with anxiety as being kind of that precursor, how fucking disorienting this would be.
Yeah, because I definitely had a lot of the time just
bending.
in a general sense of feeling like everything's going so fast. It's like suddenly it's May. Like I moved up here 5 months ago. How is it suddenly May?
Dude, that is like an intense fear of dying. I feel like when you feel like that, when time's gone too fast and you get that strange feeling, like you're mourning time that has been lost, and you're like pre-mourning your death.
Yeah.
It's like that time is gone. I've lost it, and I am that much closer to not having any more time. I really feel like that's what it is.
Yeah, whether it's like days, weeks, months, or like just even like moments.
Yeah.
Like sitting
Even
somewhere
moments.
for a while and realizing like, oh shit, it's been like 20 minutes.
Like I lost
It's
my
like, how the
time.
fuck did that happen?
Yeah, I lost life.
Yeah.
I was in my mind world and I lost time of my life.
Yeah.
So here's what's actually happening. Anxiety is affecting your concentration. For example, when you're driving and get so many miles down the road and you realize you don't really remember the last several minutes of driving. Oh my God, dude. I get that all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Like
It's
how
very
the
real.
fuck did I get here? Yeah, I think a lot of people do, especially with driving to work in the morning. Like people get that. Snap, snap, snap. You weren't concentrating on the act of driving, probably planning your day or listening to this fucking cool podcast by a couple trash cats, and you suddenly realized, oh shit, how am I here already? It doesn't mean that time is missing, but it certainly feels that way. And time doesn't change because you developed an anxiety condition, but
Yeah.
it does change your attention span and concentration to that time,
Right.
which in turn bends time.
Dr. fucking Strange over here. Dr. Stephen Strange.
I'm a pretty strange doctor, that's for sure.
Is that actually Dr. Strange's first name is Stephen?
I don't think so, but I would not know the answer to that question.
I'm gonna see how quickly Google can tell me. The only comic books I had as a kid were Spawn.
That's as cool as it gets, though. For
The
art.
fucking was it Mike McFarlane or Todd McFarlane's the one that does Bethesda, right?
Bethesda.
Yeah, I think Todd is the guy that does fucking Skyrim and shit like that.
Bethesda. What is Bethesda?
Bethesda, Elder Scrolls games, Fallout games.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Loser.
All right, yeah, I'm a nerd. The next symptom we have is memory loss. So this is similar to the fear of going insane thing, forgetting what you're doing or saying, feeling like you're constantly losing your train of thought in a sentence, can't remember the details of the previous day without really thinking about it really hard, worrying about your short and long-term memory loss, and the fear of developing dementia. So think about like reading an article, finishing a paragraph and realizing like you don't remember what the fuck you just read and you have to reread it. Like that happens to me all the time when I read in general. If I'm just like quietly reading to myself, you read it, it just doesn't absorb. So the good news is with depersonalization, it doesn't cause any kind of memory loss or lead to further conditions of worsening memory loss or, dementia or Alzheimer's, any of that. Again, it's anxiety affecting your concentration, and it makes it difficult to focus on the task at hand. So it's not that you don't remember what you just read. It's just that you weren't really actually paying as much attention to it as you thought that you were.
Yeah.
So
stuck gazing inwards.
Yeah. So like, even like you're, in the middle of a sentence and like you're in the middle of a conversation and thinking about something, but there's all these background processes that are going on, still trying to figure out what this stress and this trauma and this anxiety is going on in your head that can lead you to just not focus on it, or like you're scanning and looking for threats subconsciously and you're, might just forget what you're talking about. And
yeah.
That happens a lot. It happens a lot normally to people. Like I feel like there's a lot of people that, feel like, oh, I'm getting old, I have my short-term memory. I just, forget what I was doing a couple minutes ago or forget what I was, thinking about or something like that. And it's like, it's just a very normal thing of, concentration. It's different from your memory.
It is, but it doesn't feel that way. It
right,
still
exactly.
all feels so amnesic.
Yeah, exactly.
Emotional numbness. The feeling that you can't feel happy or sad, just feeling blank and numb, worried about losing the ability to feel emotion. This is a very common symptom, and there's nothing wrong with your emotions. In fact, worrying is emotion in and of itself. So these thoughts are somewhat like an unfounded fear. This is a part of the feeling like you're not real thing. Your brain is trying to protect you from trauma or grief, so it pulls back on your feelings, or at least diverts attention away from them.
I definitely felt a lot of that. A lot of like, it's just wake up and it wasn't even like depression. It was like, it was different. There wasn't even a sadness or like I don't know, it's just completely numb feelings. And it would just come in phases of like a few hours or so at a time sometimes.
Like ghost boy apathy.
Yeah. The next one I have is blank mind. Feeling that your mind is completely empty, you can't piece together a coherent thought, or worrying that you lose your inner monologue. This is usually directly caused by over-checking yourself. You keep running diagnostics and troubleshooting, looking for the issue that you're dealing with, but you're actually just creating the issue more than yourself. You don't have time to have a typical inner monologue if you're constantly interrupting yourself and working yourself up. You're jumping to conclusions and fearing the worst, which again creates the cycle of anxiety that gets worse and worse. That was another thing that I had, is like felt like I was constantly in my own head. And I recognized it just differently. It wasn't so much that I didn't have an inner monologue. It was just that it consumed my thoughts when I was alone. In a way that like I wouldn't think about anything else. Or if I did, it would be like somehow in relation to, everything's a stage and none of this is real.
Yeah, I always call that feeling for myself of blanking out is kind of, I always called it gray. Getting grayed out. Your just mind is gray. It's not your brownout state. Not the brownout, the gray out. But I would, for me, and a lot of people I think get this too, is I experience that kind of level of blank mind on antidepressants, where it lowers the peaks and it shallows the valleys, so you're more stable. And for me, it's really good. If things are really fucked up, I know I can use it as a tool to give myself time to deal with shit, but I know during the time that I'm on them, I'm just grayed out and my mind's just blank as fuck.
There's a lot of different reports or studies of this have shown that a lot of people describe this symptom as feeling like their head was full of cotton. And it was a way
scary.
That like partially numbing, but it also led into the whole like feeling that you might be dead kind of thing.
That's a weird thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't really know that one, but I know it's a thing and a condition in and of itself.
Yeah. So that's actually part of the next one we got here.
Existential thoughts.
Yeah.
The general sense of existential dread, worrying that you may already be dead or in purgatory, concern that you are going crazy, that feeling that you are not real.
So as we've discussed especially in the existential episode, the existential thoughts occur on their own. It's not really a symptom by themselves, but fueled by the anxiety and depersonalization, they become a very, very vicious encounter. The experience of depersonalization is so bizarre and overwhelming that your rational brain is constantly searching for an explanation. It's like these significant feelings and sensation must stem from some significant event. So am I dead, or am I in a coma or stuck in a dream or something? Like certainly they couldn't just be coming from like a bad panic attack or a traumatic event that happened, days, weeks, months, or years ago, but that's exactly how the depersonalization is exacerbated. When your brain doesn't recognize the threat and it goes into maximum security mode. And our brains are kind of wired to want the big story or the big explanation. So it has the tendency to jump to these really scary conclusions. And that's a term, it's called catastrophizing.
Yeah. And just how our brains are so designed for pattern recognition.
Yeah.
Seeing the jaguar, seeing the shine of water in a distance, seeing the face on the moon. Our brains are made for detecting pattern. I also feel very strongly our brains are very narrative driven, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like our life is, the story of our life is just the story we've told ourselves. And I think that story is often fleshed out, shaped, sculpted as you said earlier, with our internal monologue. It is like the God voice of our consciousness. We're telling ourselves, we're narrating our story. We're building the narrative, the story of what we're going through.
Right.
So when you have this perfect storm of lack of attention, darting focus, and rapid thoughts, the sense of a disturbed reality, and your own worries about figuring out what's wrong, it's only natural for your brain to consider the worst. And this builds into this narrative we're telling ourselves.
Right.
Get lost in it. And then for our last symptom, we build these strange fears.
Yeah.
Now, this one's kind of weird. So, developing sudden fears of otherwise mundane things like looking at the sky, driving a car, mirrors, supermarkets, and crowded places, just to name a few of the most common ones. What's even wilder is that you are able to recognize the absurdity of the fear. You know that it doesn't make sense, which somehow makes it all that much scarier.
So I used to have the existential thoughts, and I would think to myself things like, of course that's real, or of course it's not real, that's crazy, and then I would catch myself like, but then why do I feel this way? Why am I having all of these thoughts? Like I wouldn't be, and that was part of like, why did I feel like I was crazy? Because there is also part of me that was fighting that, like, I'm not stupid. I'm a rational minded person. Like I can look at things and I feel like I have a good sense of judgment on, deciding, finding the reality of a situation.
Who you are and what your story is.
Yeah. So for me, the fear felt more of the people are watching me and the constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop thing, like just waiting for the rug to get pulled out from underneath me. I often felt like I was right around the corner from a huge revelation of like like I said, the things are going too well, something's going to ruin it. And then when in reality, outside of my own head, I was just having a really dope year. And it was just after this big, substantial, traumatic event, but I was just having a really good year. And then that's why you said earlier, the guilt part of it. And like, that was definitely a real feeling for me. So I feel like that definitely had a play in it. Which is so wild.
It's, in different ways, it's affected me a lot too. I feel like it's just something that comes with those really hard to handle events like that.
Yeah. So I feel like so much of especially with the fear thing, like it's just the anxiety. You're in your fight or flight mode, and your brain it doesn't know what the fuck's going on. So it's trying to find the source of stress and fear, and it's just assigning blame to shit. So it's picking anything it can get a focus on and laying it open, picking it apart, and trying to make the pieces fit. I thought of it this way. It's like trying to solve a puzzle or a mystery when you think that you already know the solution to it. Your investigation is biased and you're trying to reach the end goal that doesn't actually necessarily exist. So you focus on all the wrong details and pour energy and attention into the wrong path of a solution. So like your brain's telling you like, you can't go out in public because the supermarkets, like in my situation would be, like that's where, they can see me kind of thing. And it was like I never really had that kind of stuff. I didn't really get much of the like a weird fear like that was like specific in that way. But it's that part that you're telling yourself like, well, this is part of the problem is going here. Your brain's telling you this is the problem. So then you're working in around it, trying to think like, okay, well, if that's the problem, how do I solve it? Like how do I work around it but you're focusing on like, this isn't the problem. And you're sitting here investing all this energy into it. And again, just making it worse because you're getting more upset because there's no solution there. So it's it just feeds into it and makes it worse.
Your internal voice starts leading you down the wrong path.
Yeah.
I think like, I know it's huge. I've definitely gone through it, but like, people who don't want to go to the grocery store, right? Yeah. Like there's too many people, the anxiety, the busyness of it. To me, I think like a simple version of what that narrative might really be like is, especially in a scenario like this where you're in this, altered state where things aren't right. You have this anxiety, fight or flight mode. It's almost like you don't want to go to a place where a bunch of people are going to be able to see you for who you are and that you are suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not getting like a super interpersonal look at you, but you have to be on the stage, right? You have to be in the public arena where people can see you and they can see that you're suffering. And I see that, friends, people I'm close to, people past, whatever, like that were afraid or just very consumed by anxiety or needed to be on all the fucking benzos to even go to the grocery store. I think a huge part of that is you're afraid to have people see you the way you are, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which it's sad. It fucking sucks.
Yeah.
I know I definitely feel that going to the grocery store sometimes.
I definitely get anxiety from being in a busy grocery store, but I don't think that's the reason. In my particular case, I get it when there's too many people, and have you ever been standing in a grocery store and like you might be looking at something or reading something and there's like people trying to get past you and like you just constantly feel like you're in the way? Like that gives me anxiety really bad. And usually I can take it for a minute if I just need to grab a couple of things. But if I'm like just trying to have a, stroll through the store and pick up your groceries and shit, whatever, it just makes me super anxious. And they've been really mild panic attacks compared to what I know that they can be. But I've definitely had anxiety or panic attacks because of that exact situation where I go in and I just feel like I can't find a place to just be for a minute. I'm always in the way. I move out of one person's way and now I'm in someone else's way. And like, I think that probably stems from other shit, I'm sure, but like, that's the thing that's going through my head is just like, I'm in the way.
There's a lot there with that one, dude.
There's a lot to unpack on that one.
I would love to explore that more. I used to have severe anxiety with everything, but depression was always the main thing. Depression, I was going to bring this up earlier. I feel like some mental health things are conquerable disorders and others aren't. Do you get what I mean by that?
Yeah.
I feel like depression is one you can never, it's non-conquerable, but you can be winning the battle.
Yeah, you can combat it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's
definitely. I feel like anxiety for me, and I know part of it is just my experience with it, but from my experience and people that I've been close to that experience it, I really do believe anxiety is a conquerable disorder.
I can see that.
And I don't believe at all like that makes it any less like heavy or important or whatever as anything else like a depression. But I do think it is something you can master in a way more so than some other things.
Yeah.
And for myself, I know I definitely had that constant overwhelming anxiety and I still do sometimes, but I really have like figured that one out.
That's what I was going to say. When you sit with it for something long enough like that, you begin to understand it and you understand how, like you said, how you can react to it and how how it affects you. Like you can combat it in a way that is preventative. You know, depression is like you can somewhat be preventative about it, but it's gonna come for you eventually. I think people that know depression know that like you said, like you can be winning the battle overall, and like you can be combating it in a very strong way. Yeah, but you're not going to win the war. You win the war when you die. Yeah. That's it's going to keep coming back.
I feel like you can win it with anxiety, but I know someone out there listening is probably like has a severe anxiety disorder and they would very much disagree. So it could be just our experience, but I just think there's easier odds on being able to control anxiety. It also, it can get worse. I don't know where I was going to that, but I know at like the grocery store and stuff, I'm sure part of it is like the not wanting people to see who I am or whatever, but I have like really got rid of it, and I may have replaced it with negative things, but I am just in fight mode. There's no flight mode at the grocery store. I'm ready to battle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that too. I just recognized, so I said that's a lot to unpack, and I was thinking about it for a second. I think a lot of it's got to do with a lack of control in that situation. Like, I can control what I'm doing, but if I'm constantly having to constantly feel like I'm in people's way, then I'm like,
they're in your way, motherfucker.
Well, yeah. Well, exactly.
That's what you gotta switch
too. That still doesn't really help, because I've definitely felt that, where like I just need to do this, and I can't do the things that I need to do because there are so many fucking people in here.
Yeah.
But I feel like most of the time in my life, I do feel a very good control of everything around me, on the situation around me, so that when I'm put in that situation, it can be overwhelming.
They're in your way, and you're letting them shop.
Yeah.
You stupid fucking people.
I'm letting you shop at the Kroger today.
You're going to let them buy food. It might be a minor disturbance for you, but I'll let you buy your food, because I'm the king of this grocery store, buddy.
Now I want to stop people in the grocery store, like literally grab their cart, like halt, and just look at their cart, kind of look everything up, kind of eye them up and down, ocular pat down, like, all right, continue.
Yep, I'll let you go this time.
Let him go. you look at someone who's not there, and he's like, he's good.
That would be awesome.
I think that's good enough for today.
Yeah, I was going to say, we do have this quiz, but I think we're doing a freestyle next week. I say we fuck around with it.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Yeah, it's on dissociative cognition levels, whatever.
Yeah.
It can be fun. You
got any dishonors or advice or anything?
I got to think about that for a moment. But I enjoyed this. I really do, both privately and public. I appreciate you sharing, being willing to share some of that stuff, man.
Hell yeah. When we first started doing this, I didn't really want to get into details about my grandparents too much. One, because, it is a huge bummer, but also because, my parents listen to the show, and it's not always as much fun to bring it up. We don't really talk about it that often, because, it sucks. So, one of those kind of things. It's nice to share it. It's nice to talk about it.
Yeah, we were talking about that, yesterday before recording. Sometimes it's sad to not be able to, even if things ended in a bad way, to not be able to like share a person's memory with other people, And I know like this wasn't in the positive aspects, but it's all a part of just fucking life, and being able to let go of guilt or share it, or, all those things. I don't know. I think it's really important though. And especially hard shit like that. I feel like, in my own family or whatever, sometimes we might not talk about those type of things a lot, and it's not about avoidance, but it's like you said, it's just kind of a bummer sometimes. And I think having the excuse of, whether it's a podcast or whatever, a reason for it to be talked about with family or close people is almost always a good thing. Yep.
Always down to fucking spill my guts and talk about shit. I didn't want to do it on the podcast because it was a bummer, but I don't, and I don't plan on bringing it up too much more. But, sure. But no, it's absolutely, it's really good to get that shit out. And I like when I meet people and we have that, back and forth where like they kind of start going off on something, and it's like, I'm sorry for like spilling. And it's like, no, dog, go for it. Like, they'll get it out.
Get that.
Fucking doing any good inside of you. Fucking talk about it.
Yeah. Gotta puke the vial out.
Goddamn right.
I feel like we did good. Yeah. I enjoyed learning about this with you. I'm excited for what we're doing next. And I don't know. When I look back at, starting this with you, I think it was one of the better decisions we've made. Like, this isn't, anybody listening, it's not that many people, but it's slowly grown. And for people to want to listen to us talk about dumb bullshit, weird, cool stuff, or just our own personal narrative, the God voice inside of us, be willing to listen to our shit for a couple hours every week is really cool. And it's really encouraging and validating that it's growing at all. So,
yeah, absolutely. It's very cool to see that, like, hey, we have people that listen to this that we don't know who the fuck they are. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Number 69 on the arch charts of good pods.
Yeah, that's the one we can't do any better. We have to like keep it levelate it so we just stay at 69.
Right, exactly. Oh my god, that's really funny.
So yeah, thanks again for listening, everybody. Seriously. Thank you to Approaching Human for the use of his music. You can find his work on SoundCloud at Approaching-Human.
Yep, waiting to see this record label he's putting together. Very exciting stuff.
Oh shit, dog!
And he's making music sample packs and stuff. But this music label is gonna be dope as fuck because it's gonna be all kinds of other weird musicians he collabs with that do weird shit like he does. So that'll be very cool.
Got a young white Dre walking in.
Oh my goodness.
Make sure to check out the show page at Trash Cats Trashcast on Instagram for news and art from the show. Check out Facebook for the memes. Steven's always doing good work over there.
The meme factory is strong. There's a union, but we're killing it over there. Yeah, if you're super bored, you can check out my trashy art on Instagram at Skyzix, SKYZICX. The piece I'm currently working on, I'm very excited about. We'll have that up by the time this drops. I think I had some other cool art news, but nothing's coming to mind. But got some cool stuff coming up. I think that's it. Fuck. Who can we dishonor on the way out? Oh, fuck Putin. He fucks horses.
Oh yeah, fuck Putin. He fucks horses. Yeah, that's true.
And he bombed a maternity ward today.
Yeah, I saw that.
The horses is pretty bad too.
Yeah, the horses. The horses is like, is it equal? Who's to say?
Those horses were innocent.
Those horses didn't consent. Horse can't give consent.
Oh my god. Well, that's gonna be it.
Tune in next weekend or next Wednesday for a freestyle episode, and that's gonna be all for us today. Stay classy, eat trashy.
Go fast, eat trash.